Hey, let's bring in Dregs here for Pro-Am Sports this morning, and I guess we start there just because we were talking. Can you believe Bouchard doesn't have a power play goal? Like, I still don't. I feel like the stat's incorrect. How can that guy not have a power play goal yet?
Yeah, I mean, given the opportunity for sure, and the fact that he's got the bomb, as we've seen so many times from the blue line, you'd think that at some point one of those would find a way, sneak a way in, and he's not afraid to jump into the play as well. So as soon as you said it, I went, well, yeah. Not that Matthias Ekholm is out-goaling Evan Bouchard on the power play. All right, okay, that's a bit surprising to be sure. But the fact that he has 0 power play goals, I did not know that, I would admit.
We're going to get to the World Juniors. We're going to get to the Canucks. Let's just stick with the Oilers. They continue to roll here. It's funny because as well as the Oilers have played, like the Kings and the Golden Knights just won't slow down either. The race at the top of this division is going to be incredible down the stretch, isn't it?
It should be for sure. And it looks like the Western Conference as a whole, guys, is kind of rounding into form here. There's going to be some incredible battles in every division. You know, the Pacific Division, all right, you know, you've got some good, strong teams there, but certainly between Edmonton and LA, that battle for second place is going to be an interesting one to watch it unfold. And then you look over in the Central Division, and to my money, there's obviously 5 teams that are going to wrestle, probably right down to the wire. You know, Winnipeg has more or less maintained top spot in the National Hockey League with honorable mention, of course, now to Vegas, who occupies the penthouse suite. But it doesn't look like Winnipeg's going to relinquish. So I guess in long form, what I'm saying, if you want to throw Dallas coming back into the mix, if you want to include Colorado, who has stabilized some areas, especially goaltending, you know, they are going to be formidable. It looked like the Eastern Conference was the stronger of the two for the first 25, maybe even 30, 35 games. And maybe that's the way it plays out as we drift into the second half here. But undoubtedly, these heavier teams in the West, these experienced teams in the West are starting to find their stride.
Darren, the Oilers will host the Kings next Monday in a delicious matchup there. This follows the 4-game road trip the Edmonton's currently on. I just want your thoughts on this trip. Perhaps a good time to make hay for this team as well, following, the 3 straight wins here. They'll visit Boston tonight, who've dropped 4 in a row, Pittsburgh Thursday, and the Blackhawks Saturday. But I know it's a pro league, and everybody's good and where they should be, but quite an opportunity prior to next Monday's contest with the Kings.
It is, provided the Oilers play the way that we know that they can play, the way that they've played of late. If you take your foot off the pedal even a little bit, you're going to get stung. I mean, Boston waltzed into Toronto on, I guess it was Saturday night. Ended up losing that hockey game, but man, they were good. It just had that kind of bite to it, that rivalry. And it's not like, they were dropping mitts and doing all kinds of nasty stuff out there. It just had an energy about it, a back and forth kind of punch swap. So, Edmonton is going to have its hands full with Boston Bruins. They're playing with some level of desperation and uncertainty. You look at the Eastern Conference standings and you go, okay, well, Boston should be fine. Yeah, they should be fine. But you can also see the holes in that lineup that Don Sweeney, the general manager, is keenly aware of. And he's already fired probably the toughest bullet that he's had to pull the trigger on in a long, long time. And that's firing a really good coach in Jim Montgomery and giving the reins over to Sacco. So a lot to prove in Boston. My point is that's going to be a tough 2 points. Pittsburgh, same thing. The Penguins are fighting for their playoff lives here. It seems premature to talk that way when you look at the standings and you see where we're at in the regular season. But, you can't go on 3 and 5 game losing skids. Otherwise, those points just evaporate. And all of a sudden now you get towards the end of the regular season and geez, we missed a couple or 5 there at the midway point of the season that really hurt us. So of the 3, and I pause because I was going to say Chicago should be the tap in. The Blackhawks should be, but there's a lot that's gone wrong to this point of the season. So maybe Chicago, just in the energy that is driven from playing Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and all the great players at Edmonton, maybe that energizes that group as well.
One more on the Oilers that I want to get to here. And when they signed Jeff Skinner in the offseason, it came as a bit of a surprise. I don't think many of us were, with all the moves that they'd already made. Skinner was interesting. He's 5th on the team in goals. Like the only guys that have scored more are Nuge, Hyman, Draisaitl, and McDavid, which is essentially power play 1. He's also a team worst -10. He's been stuck in the bottom 6. He's been scratched. I don't know if he's going to get another crack in the top 6, but like I said, he's also 5th on the team in goals. He's a little bit of a mystery of a player, isn't he?
A little bit, but if the Oilers saw this as a mystery, then that's a mistake on their part because, look, Jeff Skinner has proven that he can create offense. He can score goals. To your point here, Bubba, but I mean, it has to go beyond that. It does. See, I pay attention.
Yeah,
when I'm sitting there on hold, I pay attention. They were shopping in the low rent district, and I'm sure there are Oiler fans out there that say, okay, well, you're effectively getting a one-dimensional player, and we're a cap team that lost 2 really good players to offer sheets to the St. Louis Blues. Can you really afford to miss on any player, especially a player that you were hoping could fit in your top 6 to help the big boys? And I guess the short answer to that is no, you can't. Defensively, though, Skinner has been a liability for a long, long time. That is not his strength, and the Oilers knew that when they brought him in. But, he's at a point in his career, too, where, he has to understand what he has to do to stay in the lineup on a consistent basis. And that can't be just about scoring goals. It has to be about being a more effective, responsible player. So for me, that's more on Jeff Skinner than it is Edmonton, because there isn't a team in the league, especially cap teams, that don't go to the reclamation pile in the offseason and look at opportunities like Skinner and say, oh, geez, you know what? I think we can make this work. Again, the Leafs did it with Max Pacioretty. They did it with other players. The other players and Pacioretty in Toronto seem to be faring better.
Darren Dreger with us on the Nielsen Show this morning, brought to you by Pro-Am Sports. I was on Twitter last night. We'll get to the juniors in a second, but I was on Twitter last night, and one member of the Vancouver media had put out a poll that said, should they trade JT Miller or Elias Pettersson? Or both, I think was the other option. Yeah. They're in a playoff spot as of today. They hold on the second wildcard spot, I think. It's something have to give there, Drake's. Like, are they going to do something of significance?
Well, they're going to do something of significance. What we can't know as we're having this conversation is exactly what that is and whether or not it's going to involve one or both of these guys. I think it's probable, highly probable, that one of these players is going to be traded. It is possible that both can be moved. There's been lots of reporting on this, certainly locally in the Vancouver market, understandably so, and nationally as well. I mean, it's must watch for those of us in the national insider business. But again, I think what's damming this thing up is where we're at in the season. And if you're trading Elias Pettersson or you're trying to convince JT Miller, which they haven't yet, they have not approached JT Miller to say, we'd like to move you, so we'd want you to consider waiving your no-move clause to team X, Y, or Z. They have not done that yet. Is it possible they do that? Sure it is, if they get the right fit and return is something that they can live with on a longer-term perspective. And they're just not there yet. But, you look at the Vancouver Canucks, it's been wild with that organization all season long. And fellas, when I tell you this, believe it, we don't even know the half of it. We don't know the half of what's, and I'm not talking about just JT Miller and Pettersson, because look, when these two guys come out and speak to the media several days ago and say, look, yeah, whatever, you guys, you don't believe what we're saying. We're telling you that it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. It has to go beyond that, or historically has gone beyond that. So I just think that Rick Tocchet and the coaching staff of the Vancouver Canucks have done a hell of a job to keep this team in the spot that they maintain in the standings. But Jim Rutherford is a hungry dude when it comes to management, right? And historically he's proven that he likes to get his business out of the way early. Patrick Galvin, his protege, the general manager, believes in that philosophy. They're quiet publicly now, aside from the piece that was done extensively with Ian McIntyre. But they're quiet now publicly, which means it's the old duck, right? Quiet on the surface, and man, they are just paddling underneath.
TSN's Darren Dreger joining us on the Nielsen Show this morning, Edmonton Sports Talk. Darren, to the World Juniors, I know Dave Jameson and I did our little mini symposium on Canada finishing off last week. I wanted to get your thoughts, though, on the USA class of the tournament. Back-to-back goals for the first time. Sets up really nicely with the tournament going to Minnesota next year. Just your thoughts on this group, what they did and the history they made, and is it just a matter of time before 3 in a row next year?
Well, I'm not going to say that because, first of all, it's probably the only time. It is the only time in watching hockey and doing what I do that I allow myself to be a fan. And of course, I'm going to cheer for Canada. And lessons will be learned and have been learned. You know, we saw all levels of management from Team Canada come out speak. Scott Salmon, who is essentially the head of hockey operations for Hockey Canada, was not defensive, but very appreciative and wanted the message delivered, which I absorbed, in that there wasn't one of the young men who put on that sweater who did not want to do everything within himself to win gold for his country. Not one. So, look, we can point fingers at everything about the decision-making from head coach Dave Cameron to the roster assembled to those who are left at home. It doesn't matter because the best team in the tournament ended up winning gold, and that is Team USA. So, Eric, to your point, yeah, sure, it is plausible that Team USA could three-peat. Let's jinx them right now. Three-peat. Just keep saying it.
Especially on home ice. That wouldn't stay.
I don't know how you guys watch this game, but I couldn't take my eyes off Ryan Leonard yet again.
Oh, he's good.
And Cole Hudson. You know, those two Washington Capitals prospects look like can't miss. And how many times have we said that over the years when it comes to the World Junior Tournament and the players that you'll watch on this world stage peer to peer, and then they find their way to the National Hockey League. Maybe they have good careers. Some have great careers. Others don't really have any pro career at all at the NHL level. But Ryan Leonard as MVP was lights out good. There were so many that were playing on the same program, right? And to me, that's the biggest takeaway for me. If you want to compare Canada to the U.S., sure, discipline. The Americans were very, very disciplined for the most part through this tournament, but it was just wave after wave. They played the same way, and Canada just couldn't find that same level of commitment.
Drags, as always, man, we appreciate it. Before we let you go, I will let you know, because I saw it on Twitter, last night I did my final flood before our first skate of the year. Ooh. It's ready to go. Tuesday after school is the plan right now. And I was a little bit delayed on it this year, but it's looking real nice. Real nice right now.
Good for you. Good for you. Can I ask you? So I saw something this year on Christmas Eve when I was doing my gallery that I've seen before, but I haven't seen it utilized to this degree. This guy had I don't know if it's a tiger torch, but a blowtorch, like not a little one, but with a big propane bottle and the big hosel on it like this. And essentially that's how he was flooding his ice. Well, so he wasn't continuing to flood. He was just melting the top layer. And I'm like,
that's kind of
those bumps.
My buddy's dad, Darren, has a curling rink in his backyard, and he uses the same method. I saw him doing that too. Les Meyer, he does the blowtorch and propane. Yeah,
that would be a great way to finish it. Hey, just the final little bumps. Yep. There's no way I could handle a tiger torch.
Oh, we'd love to see it.
I mean, I would burn myself for sure. But
a hole in the liner and it's game over for the year.
You're right. That's a good point. All right, Dregs, have a good week, man. We'll catch up next Monday.
All right, guys. Thank you.